Hello, Ina. Thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you for having me.
IBCLC extraordinaire. I just really love your approach to care, and it was really integral in my breastfeeding journey, which has been relatively straightforward. But it wasn't until I started breastfeeding that I really realized how much support is needed. I'm a birth worker who work with women in this, and I still learned so much from you. So I think there's a lot of information out there and a lot of things that really stress new parents out. So just kind of wanted to gain some clarity on that.
Yeah,
I'd love to kind of kick it off with if you want to introduce yourself and kind of your approach to care.
sure. I'm Ina Henry. I have been in IBCLC for coming up on a decade, and got into the work after having my first, who had every problem under the sun. And I really struggled to feel supported. I went to a bunch of IBCLCs and they were great, but I felt like I had something missing and wanted to give that back. So, one of the things that I really felt was missing was community. So, that's a huge part of the care work I do is connecting parents together so that they feel supported. Sorry, my little ones here. Um, and I just really, I think there's like a lot of movies and things that portray IBCLCs as this like you will breastfeed or else, which may be funny, but it's not what I want parents to know about
Yeah.
lactation support. So for me, it's really about making whatever someone's goal is. I don't care if you breastfeed or formula feed or combo feed or what you do. Like, I want you to enjoy motherhood. I'm never going to push people beyond what feels comfortable for them. I want them to have access to information so that they can make decisions. If you don't know what your choices are, you don't have them, right? That's the
Right.
saying. And so I want everyone to have choices. I want them to have support. I want them to have community so that whatever kind of life throws at them for their breastfeeding journey, they don't walk away with it feeling like it was traumatic or that they didn't have, a say in the outcome.
Absolutely. And one thing I love that you said is you do approach everything in a very non-judgmental way in supporting them. But I remember you told me, like, this is why we don't give up on the toughest days. So supporting somebody, if breastfeeding is very important to them. I've seen it a lot of times where, after a few days, oh, my supply is really low and I don't really know what I can do, or is it actually low? So I'm just gonna kind of stop. Or, oh, this is really challenging. I just don't think it works for us. Versus, I gave it everything I could. I had all the information I needed and
Yeah.
then came to that conclusion. So, would you mind kind of talking through one or two or the common myths that you would like to debunk, like things that you hear that you're like, that's not true at all, or something that's a really common misconception with breastfeeding or feeding in general?
Yeah, oh, so many. I think, for a lot of people, it all goes south within the first few days. There is so much panic, sometimes at the hospital, sometimes at the pediatrician's office about weight. So I like to meet with people prenatally and kind of talk about what that looks like and what's the full picture because weight isn't everything. It doesn't tell the whole story. And we could have someone whose milk is about to increase in an hour, but they happen to be at their pediatrician's office and the baby's lost a bunch of weight. And they're like, oh my God, we need to start supplementing. The pediatrician is, love them, but they're not asking typically, how are your breasts feeling? Like, are you feeling super full? Are you engorged? Are you about to be a fountain of milk? So many people just get sabotaged right then and there because, if we need to supplement, we need to supplement. But if we don't, that can really, send our breastfeeding journey south very quickly.
And is that common with supplement? Because I think about my baby, we had a very long birthing experience, and something you said to me, I mean, no interest in feeding. and for a while, and you were like, he's arriving. And even just that term, it made sense because it humanized it versus treating babies like they're this machine that has to eat every 2, 3 hours. And if they don't, so is that even common where you truly have to supplement, or is that kind of just like that fear of, oh my God, my baby's not eating anything, let's
Yeah.
supplement?
Yeah, I mean, we have to look at how did the birth go? How's the baby's blood sugar? Are we having diapers? Does the baby overall look like they're thriving? And if they are, and nature kind of planned it this way. Like it's if we were all supposed to supplement in the first 3 days, then like why, like how would we have survived this long, and why would we be built this way, right? There are babies who, if they had a tough birth or, their mom has a lot going on, we think that milk is going to take longer or they're dropping weight really quickly, or, there are absolutely situations where we're like, let's give them a little bit. But even if we do need to supplement, what are our choices? Because in the hospital setting, they have these 2 ounce bottles, which may not seem like a lot for an adult, but if you look at a teeny little newborn tummy, it's a lot. Um, and they just hand them to the parent, go supplement, and they leave the room, and the parents don't know how much this baby really needs. So we're supplementing what, a 2-week-old eats with a baby that's a few hours. And then we expect mom to be able to keep up. We expect that baby's tummy to not, feel good and be able to then take small amounts as nature intended. So, are we talking about what we're supplementing with? Do we have donor milk? Is that a preference for the family? Do we have a syringe or, some other way we can feed this baby so that they're not overwhelmed? If we have blood sugar issues, we can do a glucose gel. We don't necessarily have to supplement for that. So there's so many options, but it's easy to just hand that little 2 ounce bottle that the formula companies dropped off and say, there you go. Here's some more to take home. Good luck.
Yeah.
So people don't know what their options are. So yes, there are times when we need to supplement in those first few days, but that is not the norm. That shouldn't be the default, and so often is. And I don't think it should be on the parents to make those decisions necessarily, because you just went through this whole huge experience of birth and you don't know anything about this world, and you are in this, hyper-vigilant state of I'm a new parent. I don't want to mess this up. This fragile little baby is in my hands, and how do I make sure that they're okay? So that's why, like, you really want people on your team that make you feel calm, because it's really hard to make decisions from a place of panic. To go over, like, here's what I'm seeing. Here are our options. What feels good to you knowing these options? Um, you know, I could say I don't feel stressed about the way things are looking, but the parent may still feel stressed. And I say, ultimately, it's your baby. Let's supplement if that's what feels right to you. But then they can look back at that moment and say, that's what felt right to me. So that's what we did, instead of like, oh, I didn't even know that there was a different approach we could have taken.
Yeah, and I think, I know in hospitals too, you kind of get that log of like, this is how many diapers, this is how much they should be eating. And I know your stance on this, and I'd love to kind of hear more about it because I think we're in agreement with, for me personally, logging and tracking things takes me out of intuition.
Exactly.
So if I see that, and at first, like again, when you're a new parent, you're like, oh my God, is he even going to get food? And if you don't understand how small the quantity they actually need is, it can get scary. But sometimes too, like the stress of, well, oh my God, they had 5 diapers, but not 6. Are they
Yeah.
okay? And then like how much weight if they gain this too much, too little, all of that. I think it kind of removes us out of that intuitive, like mother's intuition instinct type of place, because if you had no idea, when they slept and you just saw a sleeping baby that's peaceful versus like, oh my God, it's been 4 hours. I have to wake this child up and feed them right now and force feed them. Or imagine if someone did that to you and you're like, no, I'm good sleeping. I don't even want to eat right now. So I know you feel a little similarly with tracking things.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that there are parents, there are a lot of like super type A data type people who like it's comforting and reassuring to them
Mhm.
to track. And so I will never take people out of what they feel
Right.
works for them. But what I see for the majority of people, and definitely myself, is that when you put the trackers away, you have more peace. It helps to not know some of these things. And it doesn't mean we're being irresponsible and negligent. Like
Right.
we're kind of keeping a sense of things and we're watching the baby. If you're like, I haven't changed a diaper all day, like, yeah, that's concerning, you know. Um, but we can kind of just, roughly like, okay, I'm feeding right now, literally. Um, and I'm gonna like look at my watch. Okay, it's 9 a.m. Roughly by noon, I want my newborn to eat again. So when noon comes around, be like, are we still sleeping? What are we doing? So
Right,
like that approach just feels a lot more relaxed.
right.
And it, in the meantime, you're watching your baby, not the clock, and you are noticing, oh, they're kind of wiggling around, and maybe they'd like some attention now, and we can put them to the breast instead of, having them in another room swaddled and watching for the alarms to go off or the tracker app to tell you what to do. Um, we just, a lot of it comes from like insurance companies, what we can bill, checking off the, checklists for the pediatricians. And we've moved away from like centering the family and the baby and remembering that they're a human being and that there's going to be some variation and that somehow mothers survived before all of these things existed. And we do know, like even if you've never been around a baby before and you've been a mother for 4 hours, like like your body will know in most
Yeah,
cases. And
absolutely.
I do see people who are like, well, what if I don't know? Like, what if I'm not connected to my intuition? And it's like, yeah, well, it'll kick in. And this will be like, give yourself time to step into motherhood. And it's going to be easier to step into motherhood if there aren't all these things questioning you. Like your app is questioning you,
Mhm.
your nutrition's questioning you. And it's like, well, but did they get the right amount of diapers? And it's like, well, they're comfortable. Food went in, stuff came out, and
Right.
we're doing all right.
That's kind of always what I say too, is like you're outsourcing a lot of the trust to other people that you think know better than you, which I'm not going to say that on paper someone might, but with your own child, your own body, there is a lot of kind of observation. And I know that can be scary because in the first few days you don't really know what you're doing, but you also have to build that connection with your baby.
Yeah.
That's why I like something even like communication, elimination communication, where it's just learning
Yeah.
cues or saying like, oh, I know the baby's out to the bathroom, or I know this is what happens when baby's hungry. So I completely agree. I think that rigidity kind of negates intuition, and the center of everything with parenthood really is more intuition. Not that you can't lean on other people for support. And I always just say, what's the intention? If you are somebody that loves the data and analytics and it makes you feel better, I think that's great. I just, like you were saying, it just kind of doesn't really help me personally. And I think the overfixation and obsession on data like that can,
Well, the funny thing is, like the data, if you kept a log of everything I ate for a week, it would tell you nothing about what I want to eat today.
yeah,
The thing with babies
true.
too, right? Like, because they're just little humans. Like, like yesterday I was starving and I had like 7 meals, and today I am stuffed
Yeah.
and I just want this cup of tea and um, I don't even want breakfast. So like, babies are no different. Like they'll cluster feed and they will go to town. The app is like, oh, okay, so we're in this phase, and then the next day they're doing something else. So, you know, I, I would love to get people into like that flow and that rhythm with their babies as early as possible because it makes them enjoy it more. It connects you, and it is like about that like connection that lasts way well beyond newbornhood. And you have that intuition. You know, I I have respect for experts and time they spent, in getting their degrees and everything. I don't want everyone to Dr. Google everything, but you spend 100% of your time with your baby, whereas, your pediatrician is going to see you for 15 minutes. You're going to know more about what makes sense. Even when I come into a family's home and I'm like, I'm there for an hour, I witness what I witness, but I always have to say, is this typical? Like, it was what
Mm.
are they always this chill? Are they always this rowdy? Like is this what this experience is always like for you? Because what if I just caught them in a moment and I can't extrapolate your whole experience of your baby and what's going on for that baby based on that 1 hour?
Yeah, and then trying to fit them into, oh, well, they're 6 weeks, so they must be doing this. That's the thing too, where I think people get really stressed out is there's this typical behavior, and if they're, not completely in it, and one day, maybe the next day they are, it's just, again, it's kind of a rigid schedule that we're trying to fit babies into. when, like you said, they're just little humans doing their thing.
This is where the community piece really comes in for me is like I think the thing I love most is I have a private group for my clients. I'm friends with clients. And all that happens in there all day long and all night long sometimes is my baby's doing this. I am at my wit's end. Is this normal? And it's just other mothers going, yep, I went through that too. Yep, I went through that too. And then you just see the sigh, of relief of like, okay, you just need that reassurance sometimes that like, this is hard. This is the thing I talk about a lot is like, people are like, but this is hard, or I didn't realize it was going to be this hard. And I'm like, who is out there perpetuating
Yeah,
this myth that having a baby is easy? And we
right.
have so many like products trying to be sold to us and all of this stuff about like making it easy. There's all these commercials of like, everyone's like massaging their baby and everything's calm. And like, and yeah, like we love that to be the case, but like they're going to cry. They're going to have their moments. They're, that's how they communicate. And even if everything's going as smoothly as it can possibly go, it's still hard because you're not going to be sleeping as much as you used to, regardless of how well your sleep, is with your baby. Like it's hard. Even the easiest baby is hard. And so when we normalize like this is hard, it'll get easier. We're all in it. Oops, sorry. We're all in this together, this is normal. So, as we always get like intrusive thoughts postpartum too. So just like this constant reiteration of this is normal. It's okay. You can trust your intuition. Like, do you really think something is wrong? Or is it just like that intrusive thought that keeps popping up of like, is everything okay? And those intrusive thoughts are protective, right? Like
Yeah.
they're making a scan for issues so that we can find them if they're there. But so often they're not there, and we just need to be reassured by our peers that it's okay.
Yeah, no, and the community piece I think is huge because breastfeeding is the most normal, natural thing you could do. But I think that's a common misconception too, right? Is that, oh, it's just so natural and it's just the baby latches a meat and
Yeah.
that can happen. That can be people's experience. But it's also like the fine tuning of you having this new being in your life on the outside and they've never had to work for food. They've never had all of these other elements. And so I think that's when people kind of teeter off is, well, this is much harder than I thought it was going to be. So I kind of feel like, what's your intention? For someone like me, breastfeeding is really, really important. Somebody else might be like, I can go either way. It's, but it's just kind of what your goal is and understanding what, like you said, what your options are with them.
Yeah.
Um,
And
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
No,
No,
go.
no, good.
I was just going to ask, I think last question. So what is your perspective on things like caffeine and alcohol and breastfeeding?
As I breastfeed my child and
Yes.
drink. Um, I think all is well in moderation. I think one of the many ways that we torture mothers is like coming up with all the do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
Like milk is incredible at keeping most things out. If you're going to have a couple of drinks of caffeine, alcohol, whatever here and there, like it's going to be fine. There's really very few things that we worry about getting into breast milk. And, there's a consideration of like, well, how old is the baby? How much milk are they still getting? And, what's the situation? If you have a medically sensitive baby, maybe we're going to be a little bit, stricter about that. But if everything's going well, eat what you want, drink what you want, live your life. Babies are along for the ride.
So then is the same rule apply, you think, for like in like dairy, when some women cut out dairy or those type of things? I know.
That's a whole Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I had a nickel for every time, someone came to me and said, I'm off dairy, my pediatrician says we have a milk protein allergy. It's first of all, it's not really an allergy, but I also see pediatricians where like the baby's older and having solid foods and they're like eating dairy products directly, telling a mom to cut out the dairy from her breast
Yeah.
milk. Like make
Yeah.
it make sense. Um, I and um there's so much like but causation correlation stuff because okay we cut out the dairy it's 2 weeks later my baby's doing better well is it because you cut out the dairy or is it because we're past that growth spurt and they're older and like things settled a little bit there are babies who are genuinely going to have tummy issues because they have a family history of IBS or whatnot. But for 99% of people, cutting out things from your diet is going to have no effect on your baby.
That's so
Um,
frustrating 'cause that's such a huge thing that
yeah.
families are being told. And
Yeah. And it's always like blame the mother, right? It's like
yeah,
your baby's having a hard time. You must be doing something that's
yeah,
that. And what I see with the families I work with is most of the time they're just being a baby and it's being blown out of proportion. And parents just haven't normalized that like this is hard, babies cry, babies have gas, like helping them understand like what is even typical. Um, and then, if they've hit a point where it's not something that they can handle, they need some relief, we can talk about here's the various things to make this better that, maybe it's massages for the baby or certain positions, or, we change a little bit how we feed, like we do smaller, more frequent feeds or something. But most of the time, it's just a phase. And if there's really an underlying issue, it's almost never that you're eating dairy.
yeah,
Very small percentage of the population. And there are resources out there to do better testing. The little test they do in the peds office just says, is there blood in the stool? That doesn't mean that they're allergic to dairy. It
yeah.
just means something is irritating their intestines. It could be a strawberry. It could
Right.
be literally like stop eating food entirely then.
Yeah.
Um, and if you do an elimination diet, the point of an elimination diet is to test a theory and then reintroduce food. It doesn't mean for the whole next year of your life you're not eating dairy.
Right. Oh, that's fascinating. Well, as
Yeah.
always, I learned so much from you. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. I love also one thing about you is that you're really accessible. You accept different insurances, and I know that's a big goal of yours is to be even more accessible. And you're the best of the best. So I'm just so grateful for all that you offer, for all the help you've given me and my family, and clients I send your way, and anyone that gets an opportunity to work with you or even know you as a human is very
Oh,
fortunate.
you're sweet. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Really love it. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
Take care.